Everyone to another episode of the Old-Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. Joining me, as always, is the
Hey,
Professor.
hey, Johnny, how you doing?
Hey, all good,
Hey,
man. All good, all good. I think this episode was kind of your idea, was it not? Did you come up with this?
I did, and we're like a week late, but hey, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
hey, I was
yeah.
a week late. I was a week late for my
Yay.
mom. Hey,
What are you going to do about it? All right, okay. So this is our Mother's Day special. We're talking
yeah,
about we're talking about some of the best comic book mums you can get across Marvel and DC. So I think it's only fair that we give a shout out to our own mums. I
of
appreciate
course,
this. So,
yes.
Professor,
Well, gee, thank you to my mom for making me the man I am today.
yeah.
She was great, and she put up with my comic book collecting habit from the time I was a little boy. And she still tolerates it today. She must. So
Yeah, if she
yeah.
must. So I would like to thank my mum for selling my comic collection when I was a kid. Appreciate that, mum. Cheers. For buying me all sorts of bat tat at Christmas and birthdays. You can count on the mum to buy you something batty because you like Batman.
Well, there you
So
go.
yeah, cool. And I want to give us actually a special shout out. My mum-in-law, Linda Watson, she passed away a couple of years ago,
Oh,
and she was an absolute diamond. She even, when my wife and I moved house and we were waiting for our internet to get put in, she let me record one of our TDC episodes, the Definitive Crusade episodes, in her spare room using her internet. So that's
wow.
how cool she was. Yeah.
There you go.
So there you go. Cool. All right. Real life people done. Time for our fictitious mums. I don't think you can get much hotter mums than we're not talking about her a lot on this pod, but Jean Grey stroke Madeline Pryor. She's a she's a can you say MILF on a podcast like this? I don't know, but
I
she's
think
a
we can.
she is
I'll
a
allow it.
she is a hottie totty of a mum, bless her. Um, do we think Jean Grey is a good mum? Or do we prefer Madeline Pryor?
I don't know if I like either of them. I don't know if they're great moms. I think that this is going to be a recurring theme in the podcast of maybe some
Ooh,
not great moms out there
yeah.
when we find them. This was kind of a more difficult a difficult slog to kind of find
Mm.
some moms that either weren't dead or had some kind of influence on the characters that we love to read.
Mm.
We did manage to find a couple,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah. We've had a few.
yeah, not it's pretty difficult to kind of come up with a list. It was you
It
got
was,
to kind of go deep cuts.
I mean, do you know there are some absolute stonkers out there. When you think, oh, mums, it's like one of those things that we yeah, it must be like easy to find one. No, it isn't. I mean, we can't even use, in all essence, we can't even use Aunt May, and she was like,
Well, I know.
and she's like Peter Parker's facsimile mum, isn't she? Bless her cotton socks.
Yeah. I'm surprised no one ever actually wrote a story with a Peter Parker's long lost cousin. Maybe Aunt May had a baby, May and Ben, and we never knew about it, right?
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
good call.
yeah, why?
Yeah,
I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen something like that.
yeah.
But
Um,
we
go
did
on,
have a couple. I did have a couple of kind of honorary mentions. I
go
know
for it.
uh, um, the Julia Carpenter Spider Woman. They
Good
did
call.
they made a very big deal about her having a daughter and trying the superhero at the same time. Uh,
Much better than they've done it recently with Jessica Drew.
a different Spider Woman, right? Yeah,
Yeah, but she had a kid, and we've never seen him for the last 3 years, practically.
it's in her own book. Even
Mm.
they did better with Spider Woman on the West Coast Avengers and
Hmm.
in other books where she did go through a couple of issues where problems with not
Was
being
that
able
Force
to.
Works? Would that be Force
Might have been
Works?
Force Works too. Yeah, Spider
Yeah,
West Coast Avengers and Force Works. Yeah.
yeah, good
Uh, the
call.
other the other honorary mention that I had was Linda Park, Wally West's wife. over Flash.
Good call.
Yeah, and
Good.
she is the mom of two future superheroes,
Yeah,
and still going strong as far as we know. So since
yeah.
being erased from existence.
No, she's still in there. She's still
Okay,
in there.
well,
Reading
all
recent
right then.
DC books. Can I think of it? I said Jean Grey. I said Aunt May. Can I think of any more? See, now I'm an Ant, and I'm thinking Aunt Beru from Star Wars. I mean, where else can you get the best blue milk in the galaxy than from
Well,
Aunt Beru, right?
there you go. I mean, we didn't constrain ourselves to the comic book universe, even though, we do have someone out of left field, I think, which
Yeah.
one of my favorite moms.
Well, indeed, I know that. So we're going to start off. We're going to start off with a kind of a, a refresh of an old favorite. We recently talked about Action Comics #1. So this bad boy is its contemporary. This is Superman #1. This comes from it's June '93, I believe. And June '93. I couldn't find this anywhere on eBay.
Oh, is,
However,
is this is this the facsimile version or the reprint?
no, well, the original 1939 comic has a recorded sale on Go Collect of $815,000, and that's on a grade 4. That's the highest grade they've got
Hmm.
as a sell on this comic. So that tells you how hard it is to get hold of this one. It's written, of course, by Jerry Siegel, art by Joe Shuster, ink by Joe Shuster, letters by Joe Shuster. So, Joe Shuster, well done. You've earned your triple check there. I was a little bit surprised about this book. I'm not sure if you were. I did not expect it to be a bit of a reprint from Action Comics #1, which we've recently looked at in our Superman special. There are additional pages thrown in there, though, for good measure. And this is the reason why we picked it, isn't it?
It is. Well, we do the first appearance of Martha Kent, and if there's anybody in that is worthy of us talking about for moms, it's Superman's mom, right? Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
because we know that Superman valued truth, freedom, the American way. You know,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
those values all instilled by Clark's parents.
Mm.
And I mean, they don't do a lot with Martha in the first couple of decades, right? I mean, she's dead. They kill her off,
Oh,
but she comes back. She comes back in the Superboy series, right? I mean, she's around in
yeah.
Superboy, and then of course when John Byrne relaunches Superman in '85, he retcons Martha and Jonathan to actually be alive, and they're still around today, right? So
I think at least Martha is. I haven't seen either for a while. Like, it's interesting because on this book, it's actually Mary. Look, Mary, it's a child.
Mary.
She doesn't become Martha till later on. Very much like she doesn't work. He doesn't work at the planet. He works at the star. You know.
Right.
So these are all. Remember, this is the first couple of issues. 1939. Superman's only been around for a year, so it's not like everything's cast in stone. You're absolutely right. I think when we think of Martha, if I'm honest, I'm thinking John Byrne Martha. I'm thinking Lois and Clark Martha.
Yep. Smallville Martha. Yeah.
Smallville Martha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's been portrayed several times on TV and film. So
I think that just shows you, though, doesn't it, how important the character is of Martha, right, over John.
well, yeah. I mean, and this kind of this flies in the face of what we normally see. And I said this at the beginning of the podcast. Most superheroes that we read about are orphans, or they're purposely separated from their family, because when you're a little kid and you're reading a superhero, you want to have that. They have that fantasy of being unsupervised or being on their own, which when you're 8 years old, I mean, that's so far away, you don't even think about it. You never think that your parents are going to be gone. And here in comics, that's your escape, right? Your escape from supervision, from discipline, from everything. So
yeah.
so a lot of these times the parents are out of the picture, and either mom's not there, dad, of course we read Spider-Man, Uncle Ben gets killed, of course, and he's already an orphan, right? So he's an orphan and he's orphaned again. So
well, you could argue that Superman's exactly the same. He's lost the whole planet.
Right. So
Yeah.
So, with Martha Kent, especially in the 80s when John Byrne brings her back, yeah, she's right there, and that's where he gets his values from.
That's a great shout. I always think we always say that like Batman is the character, Bruce Wayne is the mask.
Yeah,
And I always like to think that Clark Kent is the person. Clark Kent, if he saw a burning building and he didn't have superpowers, he would still run in. And
exactly.
that's due to Jonathan and Martha bringing them up right. Yeah, it's that whole nature versus nurture, or nurture versus nature even. Whereas Kal-El is his Kryptonian persona, it is Clark. We respond to Clark, and I think as Superman mythos went through time, I think it's definitely an improvement to bring Clark to the forefront and not just be some sort of simp idea simp ID for him to kind of hide behind. This book, we saw Martha early doors. It gives us a little bit of a preview. These are extra pages and panels put in. This is where Action Comics 1 kicks in.
Yeah.
If you remember, you can see that the costume's slightly different. It's less colourful. It is Siegel and Schuster, so we've seen this before. Where he breaks into the house to speak to the governor. There is the classic car scene that everybody loves. That's an
Action the cover of Action Comics #1.
At which point, that's where Action Comics #1 stops, and this is where Superman now kind of extends that kind of storyline a little bit.
That's actually from Action Comics
#2. Is it? Okay, cool. So, back in the day, reprint comics were available. Why were they available? Primarily, Professor, because comics weren't collectible back then. They were meant to be read and thrown away, right?
Yep. Yeah, they did. I mean, the collectible aspect of it was non-existent. I mean, that's why they're so collectible today, because there's so few left. The paper is newspaper thin. They're very easily damaged. You used to walk around with them rolled up in your back pocket. So
who would do that? Who would? Do
I know.
That? I was cursing a little bit the other day when we were on No Prize, and Lucas said, "Oh, you can read comic books in the bathroom." I was like, "What are you doing? Do you really want to read comics in the bathroom? Really?" I mean,
they absorb, especially the old ones with the newsprint. They absorb the smell.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah, smell-o-vision. No, thanks. It's interesting. I think I mentioned this before. Martha is such a strong, I suppose, component of the Clark story. Maybe not the Superman story, but definitely the Clark story.
Of course.
I like it later on in Superman when Lois and Martha become tight. I like that whole sense of family that they get. Superman is a bit of a douche in this book. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and we definitely talked about that before. Yeah. He's definitely a different kind of a role model. He's probably a role model from the 30s, right? Or the 30s or 40s.
Yeah. I mean, and we all know the story about how he's supposed to be epitomizes the strength over for the characters, for the creators who felt a little bit belittled through to their heritage, and this is the kind of the Superman that they wish they were, that could stand up to who they thought were their oppressors,
right,
from a social point of view. We look back with that social lens now, and we can see that. But back then, we're like, "Hey, man, these guys sold Superman to DC. Way, excellent, good work, well done." And of course, they lived to rue those choices, I'm afraid.
Well, I think their families are doing pretty good now.
It's really hard. I don't know where I sit on this, actually, because I think I think it's really hard to go back and apply today's standards to something that happened in the past. I think it's really hard to do.
I agree with you.
I mean, what happens if, just say, in 10 years' time, so society takes a twist the other way? Does that mean they have to give all the money back to DC? That's not going to happen.
I think
Yeah.
I think the world is going to get more and more liberal. I don't think it's going to go backwards. So
Right,
we'll
cool.
see.
Right. So we mentioned Martha, and the most common meme in the internet history is, Martha, why did you say that name? And all because the powers that be forgot there was already a Martha kicking around the place.
Well, in the defense, the superheroes. So even though Detective Comics and Action Comics were both published by DC, they were both produced by different studios. The way that comics worked, the way that DC worked back then, was these heroes were unrelated. It's not like the Marvel bullpen where everybody was together and doing this and that. Superman was one studio, wherever Siegel and Schuster were, right? And then Bob Kane was doing his own thing in Batman, and Bill Finger.
Of course, Bill Finger.
So
I kind of like that idea. I've got to be honest. I think one of the things that knocks me the most when I go to the cinema now and like, oh no, something's attacking Gotham. It's like, well, hold on a second. Superman's my best pal. I'll just call him up and say, hey, Supes, what are you up to? You know, it's one of those. You know, you've got to explain where Thor is in Civil War in the movie, because really, to be honest, you'd expect a god to turn up. But anyway, this is Detective Comics number 33. Again, couldn't find it on eBay. It's an absolute rare book. 9.2 on Go Collect, sold last year for $341,234. All right,
that's an odd number.
Blame Go Collect. What can I say?
Interesting.
This is written by Bill Finger. Gardner Fox also gets writing credit for this book. It is Detective Comics from the 30s, so you do get lots of different strips. Art is by Bob Kane and Sheldon Moldoff. Inks by Bob Kane. Sheldon left. Moldoff also applies letters. And the reason why this book is so important, I'm not sure that's the right word I would use for it, but still, it's the first appearance of Martha Wayne. And in an unnamed capacity, there it is. Get your hands off her! Bang, bang! Oh no, she's dead.
She's dead in the second panel. She's gone.
She's dead, Jim.
Yeah.
And of course, as everyone knows from Batman, his parents die. Next thing you know, he's making the vow to wage war on criminals and then probably become the prowess fighting machine that he is now and the scalloped bat of the night. I think we must have seen that page a gazillion million times.
Yep. I shall become a bat.
Yeah. For me, it is probably the most easiest of all superhero origins. And I think even now, it still works.
Yeah.
You can't, I mean, Spider-Man's been debunked. The spider that bit him then went and survived and bit Cindy and became Silk. I'm like, really? The spider that survived that long? Really? Did it really? But this is simple. This is straight up. It's dead easy. Mugger comes along, kills your parents, you get angry, you want vengeance. And that's it. True?
Very, very true. And I'm struggling to kind of think of any other book that had Martha Wayne in it being a parent.
That's a good call.
Because I don't think that they ever really did go back and say the Bruce Wayne, before he was, any kind of formative instance where Thomas and Martha parented him and pointed him in the right direction.
I suppose there's that. Let's see. Give me 2 seconds, because there is a book where she appears first up. of just checking see if I've got his name. All right, okay, so here we go. So probably the next big sort of Martha appearance again isn't particularly around Martha, it's around Thomas. It's a Lou Moxon Detective Comics 235, and this is the one where Bruce ends up going back in time, or reads a story about his father wearing the bat costume, and Lou Moxon, the gangster, gets shot, and Lou Moxon and Thomas Wayne pulls a bullet out of him, and then Lou Moxon gets Joe Chill to kill the Waynes, and then Bruce turns up, threatens him, takes off his mask, and says, "I am that child." And then Joe Chill's runs into the room and says, "I created the Batman," and everyone shoots him before they tell him who he is. And that's from 1956. So, you're absolutely right, though, Martha. I think
she kind of disappears, right? She's kind of a tool. She's kind of a tool to show you why Batman became Batman. But then that's the only use of the story they have for either Thomas or Martha is the fact that, hey, he's an orphan.
It is within this realms of this show. Yeah. Obviously, DC Flashpoint has a whole different Martha, but that's in the 2010s and so on. So
isn't she the Joker?
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So change it up. You're right. Martha doesn't do a lot. Even in the Batman movie, she doesn't do a lot. She's there to look pretty and end up getting killed. Which is
she's there so you can see the Frank Miller pearls bouncing, right?
Yeah. Can you imagine if Frank Miller had a time machine? He went back in time and said, "Right, kill her and let the pearls splash, because in about 40, 50 years' time, I'm going to make a killing on that image."
For sure. For sure. Oh boy.
Book-wise, we've seen this type of Batman before. I love this Batman. I think he's class. I love how he looks. I love how both insanely daft he is by having his costume in a trunk. His car's not a Batmobile, it's just a red sedan. But then lots of things become tropes. You've got the bat rope, you've got him climbing up the building, which is used to great effect in the 60s TV show. You've got batarangs, you've got, oh man.
Just to think, really, like this is really like the sixth issue of Batman, sixth Batman appearance, really.
Yeah.
And how he's morphed even from his first appearance. With the ears were smaller, but now they've become more pointy. He's become more of a two-toned with the black and the blue, and even the belt is yellow there. In his first couple of appearances, he was just kind of in shadow a lot. The cowl was all black. Here you actually get the highlights of blue start coming in. And pretty soon that becomes the more cartoony blue with the black kind of forehead.
Yeah.
Especially when Robin makes his first appearance. It
Agreed.
Really
Absolutely.
More colorful. But yeah, these are some of my favorite stories to just kind of sit down and kill an afternoon. You can read a bunch of Detective Comics in an hour. It's like 8-page stories.
I actually, I mean, he's using a gun there as well, so which is a little bit of an oddity. I'm going to say something bold on this one. Are you ready?
Yeah.
If you modernize the art, I think these stories still hold up now, because Batman is just such a basic character. Yeah. I miss this Batman. The Batman that goes up against gangsters and hoodlums and doesn't have to worry about trying to save the planet or whatever.
You miss the Batman that carries a gun?
I don't. Yeah, that's part and parcel of it at the time, but obviously that got changed down the line. I miss the Batman that takes on crime. Batman. I've never seen Batman solve a crime in ages. Yeah. It's always driven by some event. Yeah. It's kind of like Indiana Jones in the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie. Things just happen around him. He never actually impacts them at all. So I like this era of Batman. It's one of my faves. I like, as you absolutely said, I like to sit down and just read through like a whole graphic of all these daft Batmans, and you look at it and you laugh and go, oh yeah, you wouldn't do that, and then the next issue, modern issue, you see you falling from space and surviving.
Yeah.
You're like, how bonkers is that compared to this?
Well, wait till you get into the 50s and early 60s, and you get some really out there stories.
Yeah.
But
Still
these
no
ones,
Batman.
I like this Spawn and Superman, where they spend the first 10 years of their books just fighting gangsters. No super villains,
Yeah.
even Batman runs into the Joker a few times, well, several times. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's the Joker, and
Well,
he's just a guy.
Well, I mean, the Joker had to get is probably the first retcon in comic book history, right? Because in Batman #1, he gets killed.
Yeah.
That's a retcon him back.
Oh yeah.
So it's
and
like
they kill him off like at the end of every issue for a couple of years, and they just bring him back. Yeah.
It's kind of funny because it's like in the Scarface. Every time Scarface appears in the Batman cartoon, the doll always gets broken. It's class. It's just one of those kind of things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. One of those little tropes. All right. So we've had the Marthas. Who's next on our list? Well, you're going to have to wait till after the break. I've already mentioned it. No Price Podcast. It's where you can get all your Marvel news, your Disney Plus news, and of course your MCU. So here it is. It's No Price Podcast.
Hey.
Right. There you go. No Price Podcast drops alternate weeks to TDC. As I said, everything about Marvel. And of course, don't forget the ever loving 2-minute warning. But to be fair, it's actually getting close to 2 minutes.
We try to keep it in single digits,
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. Yeah, cool. Next up, this is one of Bud's suggestions. I've got to say, it's an absolute stonker. This is by far my favorite book of the whole show. All right.
Oh, so, does stonker mean you like it?
Yeah, stonker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, stonker is a good thing, like a stonking good thing.
Oh, I thought stonker meant kind of like stinker, like.
Just... No, stonker's good.
Oh,
stonker's good. Trust me.
I trust you.
All right, cool. I absolutely adore this book. I started flicking through it, and I was like, I'm sure I've seen this before. I must have read it a million times somewhere along the lines. But as soon as I saw certain pages, stupid, big, goofy grins on my face. What can I say? We're talking about mums. You can't talk mums without the Marvel Universe, without talking about Sue Storm. And of course, she is the mum of Franklin Richards. And this is his first appearance, along with Annihilus. Annihilus? I can't say it.
Annihilus.
Thank you. I can't say it. Annihilus. All right. Written by Stan Lee, art by Jack Kirby, inks by Joe Sinnott. Sam Rosen is the letterer. eBay, you can get this for around £169 to £380. The grade is very, very low. I'm just saying that. 9.6 from Go Collect, one sold last year, £12,680 dollars. Sorry. So you've absolutely, if you want it high grade, you're gonna have to pay the price for it, I'm afraid. Which is surprising because I don't think Annihilus or Franklin Richards have done anything particularly fantastic, but there you go.
Hey,
Professor,
first appearances. Hey,
yeah.
This book, I actually own this book, and I picked it up without knowing what it was until I read it, and I was like, oh, this is the first appearance of Franklin and Annihilus. And can I tell you how tough it is to get this book at a high grade because of the king size specials, because they were glue bound, not stapled, right? So yeah, it was
really.
I believe so.
Cool.
If I recall. Um, I
No, that
maybe
sounds
'cause it
about
was
right.
it was a big fat. This was like the 64 page
Hmm.
king size. This really was king size. So
Cool.
um, heck, you can't beat Lee and Kirby. Yeah, I mean,
Well, this is for me. I looked at this book, and it was this panel that made this page that made me smile. This is when I think of Jack Kirby.
oh yeah,
This is what I think of, and I know we've talked about him in the past. We've looked at certain books that worked really well. We looked at books that didn't work so well. For me, this is Kirby at his peak.
yeah, nonsense machines with buttons and readouts that don't do anything, but they look cool. And
Mm.
even when they're standing around, they look kinetic and energy and stuff's going
Mhm.
on and everything's moving. Um, I mean, look at that bottom panel with the thing just walking down. Yeah, I mean, that's energy, that's motion.
Mm.
They don't look like two-dimensional figures to me ever when Kirby's drawing it. They look like real people.
Mm.
And that to me. I mean, Lee and Kirby is the reason Marvel Comics is still going. You know,
Hmm.
I think.
I'll give you that. No, I'll give you that. I think their creations are definitely the things that are pushing forward.
Yeah.
Um, what makes me laugh is we recently looked at for a bit Fantastic Four on No Prize, and I enjoyed reading this a lot more than I enjoyed reading the last issue of Fantastic Four. So,
Oh, yeah, because I think that some of the I think it's been lost, like
mm,
the emotion, the family aspect, But this book in particular, if you go back and read it today, especially
mhm,
if you read Lee and Kirby's run,
mm,
you do get it doesn't stand up to today's sensibilities because of the, I guess, anti-feminism, or they just kind of.
yeah,
Sue is relegated very much to the damsel in distress on the team
mhm.
in whatever storyline they're in. And in this book, she's not even in it, right? She's in it on the last page when she gives birth to Franklin.
But isn't this
So,
whole story about her? Isn't Reed on the search for some doohickey or some antimatter stuff to help her in her pregnancy because she's going through some troubles, right?
yeah, yeah. And then, yeah, and of course, she's still not in it. you know, I
The
mean,
book's still
she's,
on about her.
yeah. So the, the good thing, I mean, the thing you buy this is you don't really buy it for the first appearance of Franklin, right? This is
Hmm.
the first appearance of the Negative Zone, isn't it? And the first appearance of Annihilus and
Oh,
what's
is
on the other
it?
side,
It's
you know?
definitely Nihilus. No, no, I can't even say it even. Nihilus. I love the mixed media here.
Yep.
This looks gorgeous. I absolutely love the idea of what he was trying to
Jack
do
Kirby
there.
did that a lot starting in, the Fantastic Four 48, right? Was the first
Mm,
appearance of the Silver Surfer. He did that in this especially this, with some Galactus in there with the planets and
mm.
he's like some photo layovers and stuff. He did a lot of great
This
stuff.
can't this can't be the first appearance of the next. Oh, I don't know. When did this come out versus
It's not the first
Galactus?
appearance of a Negative Zone.
When did so the first appearance first negative zone? I thought that was
Maybe I'm wrong with the Negative Zone, but the first Annihilus I thought was the first Negative Zone.
Fantastic Four number 51.
Oh, okay.
That's
Well, then
when
I'm wrong.
that's when Johnny went into the negative zone to get the nullifier they were going to use against Galactus, right? Is that
No,
that?
he didn't. No,
When did he go and get that then?
the ultimate nullifier was in Galactus's starship.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
Johnny Storm went in the negative zone because he came back. So
yeah. Okay. Well, go back and read
ah,
your Lee and Kirby Fantastic Fours. This is, if it's not the first appearance of the Negative Zone, it's the second. So
yeah.
it's
So by all means, I tell you what, everyone who's watching the pod, do your research. Let us know which one of us is right. There's a
post
no
it.
prize.
Post,
Yeah, there's a no prize.
post it on Twitter and yell at us.
Yeah, there's a no prize waiting for you.
There you go. There you go. But this Kirby does that like no one else, man.
Yeah.
the photo art is just great, and they look more cartoony.
I always think I'm gonna be a bit cheeky on this one. I'm gonna go back. So even here, when Reed's using his fancy Dan machine, I think he still looks like a coiled spring ready to go. You can almost see his elasticity in the forearms and this arm here. I just think it just works so well. Things get a little bit crazy later on, and Nihilus is there, and then you get the usual proportiony stuff that goes on. But honestly, it just absolutely reeks of classic Fantastic Four.
Did you like Annihilus as a bad guy?
Nah.
Take him or leave him?
Yeah, pretty much. I think there's a whole range of that type of bad guy that kind of exists.
Yeah, I think because like with Kirby's run, where he was just so prolific in the entire run, where like from issue to issue, they were breaking new ground and introducing classic characters. I would say Annihilus is on the lower half of that spectrum as far as classic villains go. Even though I think he has such a unique look,
Yeah, it's a great look.
Yeah, but I like the character, and I like the fact that he's got that that thing on his neck that keeps him young, and it gives that motivating character. That in fact that's what they're after to save Sue, right?
So I see this Annihilus is one of those characters for me who I always think Annihilus and characters like Khan are interchangeable. Same as like Baron Zemo and the Red Skull. Yeah, I can pretty much just interchange each one because the rhetoric, the reason that they exist is so similar. I think, not to disparage anybody else, but I think that's what makes Batman's rogues villains, his rogue gallery, so much better. Fair enough, you can say Joker, Riddler, but after that, everyone's diverse. It doesn't feel like the same type of character. Whereas Annihilus in the negative zone, well, doesn't aren't other characters living in there? And then you think, so you think to yourself, all these in Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's run, you've got the Inhumans, you've got Annihilus, you've got Galactus, you've got all these great big world-changing events in the comic book world. It can't happen every other day.
Well, that's true. But I mean, for every Galactus Kirby created, you get Paste Pot Pete.
Hey, don't you be knocking Paste Pot Pete? I love me some Trapster.
Well, but you're right though. I mean, Negative Zone Annihilus. You could do the Microverse and Psycho Man. You could do, so yeah, I get it. So they introduced Wakanda, and you get Claw, even though you get the Black Panther too. But I get it.
Isn't Claw just another version of Shocker?
Yeah.
I don't know. This is where things kind of. Well, I suppose let's say Shocker uses vibration, where Claw uses actual sound. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
you get the Molecule Man,
Mole Man.
There you go.
So I mean, I don't know. I just think sometimes, and I think this is probably a knock on Kirby that nobody talks about a lot, but he likes his kind of alien seeding the planet storyline a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've got Fourth World, you've got New Gods, you've got Eternals.
Yeah,
it's practically the same story.
Yeah, it is.
And you kind of, I love Kirby on Fantastic Four. I absolutely adore Kirby on Fantastic Four, but that's where I adore Kirby. I don't buy into the whole, he could write for comics, because it wasn't until after his passing and how the people went back and said, "Oh man, New Gods is great." It kind of reminds me a little bit about the whole Batman thing. Do you remember Batman came out with the Michael Keaton movie?
Yeah.
Do you remember how many people hated that movie?
I don't, because I loved it. So
Well, I loved it, but loads of people are like, oh, the film's long, it's this, it's that, it's the other, it doesn't focus on Batman. All this negative press. Now, all of a sudden, Michael Keaton's has to be the best Batman. Like,
well, because he's the next Batman.
it's like, did you not see the movie? Were you not there at the time?
So anyway, bottom line, I think even though we're talking about Sue being being the mom, I think that she's in Fantastic Four, especially this run. Like I said, she's relegated to damsel in distress. She's and even here she's practically written out of the book, right? Because she's not on the team anymore. Crystal's taken her place during her pregnancy and sticks around for quite a while afterwards, while Sue is raising Franklin. But then going forward, she's a terrible mom. Franklin never, first of all, never ages past the age of 5.5, right? And but she's constantly going off into danger, leaving him with Agatha Harkness, leaving him with whoever, and basically being an absentee mom, which later on down the road they actually visit that kind of storyline and that kind of neglectful parenthood. But especially with Reed being such an absentee dad.
Well, doesn't Sue leave Reed Richards for a while?
Yeah. Yep. And because of that, so it is interesting when you read that when you know Marvel kind of focuses on the dramatic aspects of the characters, and they do kind of shine a light on the fact that Franklin's parents are kind of I don't know.
Douchebaggies.
Yeah.
Bit ash. Okay, cool. Well, you know what? Yeah, I think Franklin Richards one of those characters that seemed like a good idea at the time, and then kind of somewhere along the line lost its way a little bit. Bless his
Well,
soul.
now they have 2 kids, right? So, but that's out of timeline.
Oh yeah. Let's not talk. Let's not talk about that. Killing me. All right. Okay. I suppose our last actual book. We have this beauty. Again, this is one of the professor's choices. And I think this is probably, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's one of your faves.
Yeah, it is.
Look at that grin on his face, of course.
Come on. What better mom is there than one that makes herself a mom?
Ta-da! All right. This is Vision and the Scarlet Witch, number 12 of 12. You can get this on eBay for £112.
What?
Go collect, have it at $72.
What?
Yeah.
This is $1 a book, if anything.
Well,
you should be able to go find this in a quarter bin somewhere. Come on, I usually profess to bring you value when you come in. You don't pay $72 for that book. I'm sure you can find it somewhere else.
I want to prove this to you, all right? It's just because, I know people think I make this stuff up, but I really don't. There you go. Go collect the Vision and Scarlet Witch, 9.6. A census a year ago, $72 on average. A 90-day average of $50. Look how much it sold, 122. Even at 9.2, $65. 9.50. 8.38.
Wow. I don't believe it.
$34 for a grade 6.
And that's because this is the first appearance of Tommy and Billy, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. So
wow.
I don't make this stuff up. I do the research. I'm really sorry to tell you this. I wish I could turn around and say, yeah, I made it up, and yeah, your comic book's worth a shed load
unbelievable.
Of money.
If you're buying it for that, for the collectability of it, more power to you. The book kind of stinks. It's but this is so. I mean, what this is Englehart and is it Milgram? Oh, Richard Howell.
But yeah, so let me give the credits. I normally do credits. I apologize. Steve Englehart's written, doing the words. Richard Howell's on art. Frank Springer, not any relation to Jerry, I don't think, is on inks. Bill Oakley is on letters, and colours are by Petra Scortese. And as you've mentioned, it's the first appearance of Thomas and William Maximoff. They have the Maximoff surname?
They they did here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, because Vision doesn't have a last name, does he?
Yeah, they dropped it later on. So, after their, and that's outside of the timeline. So, this is one of the stranger books, right? It's because we don't find out for a couple of years after this, but Scarlet Witch, early on in this limited series, became pregnant with the Vision's baby. They spend a lot of time saying, "How the hell did that happen?"
Yeah.
They say, well, Wanda wanted to be pregnant so bad, she hexed it and made it happen. And we just kind of went rolled with it, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this story stinks. Grim Reaper is supposed to be dead, and Necro brings him back to life for like one last go around. Now, we do keep coming back to talking about family dynamics, and this is one of the family dynamics that I kind of enjoy in comics because, you have Wonder Man, Simon Williams, whose brain patterns were used to create the Vision. So the Vision in this point, the Vision and Simon have become brothers, right? So Simon is like the uncle to Wanda and Vision's kids, which I was like, this is so cool because they're creating like a little Avengers team, but they're all related. And the weird thing is
incest assemble. Oh, sorry.
Well, later on, you find out that Simon has been in love with Wanda for forever, but of course, it stands to reason the brain patterns, right? So hey, I totally bought that 100%.
But then isn't what you call Ultron's missus?
Jocasta,
isn't she made from the Wasp's brain pattern?
That's correct.
It's like I know my stuff.
Yeah.
And therefore Wonder Man should be attracted to the Wasp. And then Wonder Man also has relationships with Miss Marvel. That's the Carol Danvers Miss Marvel.
So an Ultron created Vision and Jocasta, which makes Vision and Jocasta brother and sister, right?
Right. Oh, my head hurts.
Yeah. This is almost like trying to suss out Jean Grey and Scott Summers.
We need to put this on a talk show and get some Saturday afternoon shenanigans. I want to know I have a question about this book. Why has everyone got an inane smile on their face? It's like everyone's got awful.
Because they're she's having a baby, so everybody's going to be happy. Tell me, answer me one thing. This is one of the very first, one of the few appearances of the Technicolor Wonder Man costume. How did you like that?
Oh, it hurt my eyes. My eyes bled. My eyes bled.
The costume got so much bad publicity, they changed it quick.
Did he go to his safari jacket after this?
No. He went from the safari jacket to this because at this point, Simon is a movie star, and his agent said he needed to freshen up his look. So he dyed his hair because his hair was all gray, right? Remember that? So he dyed his hair black, got a haircut, and changed his costume. And when he lost the glasses, so if you see that he lets his red eyes show, and they hated it so much they changed it back within 6 months. As soon as the letters started pouring in about how terribly he looked.
Everyone's got daft smiles on their face. It hurts my eyes. Magneto turns up because obviously he wanted to see his daughter.
Yeah, well, he wanted to see his grandkids, right?
Yeah, and then just gets all a bit bonkers after that. I thought Doctor Strange was a heart surgeon.
He is.
So what's he delivering babies for?
Magic, because magic. Yeah. So, yeah. But then you
It's
have
just, it's a stinker, really.
it is. It is. I mean, when you read the entire limited series like front to back, the last issue makes more sense, because they have Grim Reaper and Necra. And at the beginning of the beginning of the Vision and Scarlet Witch limited series was also the beginning of the West Coast Avengers. So the first two issues were crossovers, if you remember.
Yeah.
So that this kind of wraps up that whole storyline. And of course, this last page where they all go to Mrs. Williams, Simon's mom, and Vision calls her mom too, which is kind of cute. So
isn't there a panel with there? I know there's a panel with fishnets on.
Oh, there we go. I can't remember the name of those supporting characters for that, but they look like magicians.
Fishnet Frida, that's what we're calling her. Fishnet Frida. All right, I mentioned that this was our last comic book. However, both the professor and I have a little bit of a love for a certain comic strip, and we think it's about time that we gave some love to probably one of the most unsung characters in comic strips.
Yes.
So, Professor and I would like to say thank you to Calvin's mum. This is Calvin of Calvin and Hobbes. She doesn't have a name other than Mom.
Nope.
So,
and Dad is Dad, Mom is Mom. You never know what their names are.
That's because that's the view from a 6-year-old. This strip, this part of the strip, this is taken from a very classic storyline that runs on for a number of days, in which Calvin finds a little hedgehog and he tries to bring it back to life, to give it, it's a raccoon, not a hedgehog. He tries to bring it back to life, to nurse it back to life, and he gets his mom. And, the whole idea that, I get my mom, moms can solve everything. And he gets her, and then she sends him off for a box, and then she's talking to Hobbes as if Hobbes is real. And that's the whole conceit of the strip, that Hobbes isn't actually real at all. And unfortunately, the raccoon doesn't make it. And the sense of desolation in Calvin is immense. And I just thought, for all the trials and tribulations that Calvin puts her through, she is an absolute grade A, top one mom.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm surprised. So I was actually going to ask you, like, what made you think of this particular strip? Because out of the millions of Calvin and Hobbes comic strips, like that, I mean, there were so many.
I like Calvin Hobbes when he's being funny. Don't get me wrong. Well, yeah. I laugh when it's funny. I absolutely do. But I think Calvin and Hobbes works better when this sort of serious stuff comes up, because it takes it that next step. Every kid has gone through that idea of losing something, and the interaction here in the next strip after this is that Calvin didn't even know the raccoon existed until that day.
Yeah.
And when the raccoon dies, he says something like, "How could I miss something that I've only known for such a short time?" And when you think about our experiences as kids and pets that we've loved or and whatnot, that's exactly how it is, man. That's exactly how it is. And mums are that fulcrum in your family. They're the person that puts up with all your childish crap. They're the stuff that they're the people that put up with all your dad's adult crap, yeah, and still get up in the morning to make sure your breakfast is on the table. And I think Bill Watterson, the creator of Calvin Hobbes, I think he absolutely epitomized, he gets it bang on right. Because both the mum and dad are absolutely frustrated with Calvin. He's a hyperactive kid for sure, but deep down they love him really. And it's stuff like this that just makes me go, oh. Yep. I'm a big softie, really. So that's the reason why I picked this one.
I actually love almost every single Calvin and Hobbes strip I've ever read, and it was the when I was a young lad, and I grew up reading comic strips before I read comic books. I was
Yeah,
did the
likewise.
Sunday funnies, and I came upon Calvin and Hobbes very very early, and
Mm,
I actually would, as soon as the newspaper would come, I always stole the newspaper so I could read Calvin and Hobbes first,
mm,
and then of course when they started releasing the collections, and now I have the entire hardcover collection of Calvin and Hobbes just so that I can pour through it whenever I feel like
mm,
it. And I can tell you I've read it more than once, and they all stand up and they're all wonderful. And if you've never
mm.
read Calvin and Hobbes, what are you doing? Go get some.
Yeah, go
It's
get some.
it's beautiful and a great escape from superheroes.
Absolutely right. I think it's heartwarming. It's sweet. It's. I love the ones where it's like Christmas time, and Calvin gets if he's forgotten to get Hobbs something for Christmas. Well, it's all right because Hobbs has bought Calvin 2 cans of tuna because that's what Hobbs likes. So if Calvin really wants to, he can just give the tuna back to Hobbs, and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
And you're like,
It's
but
perfect.
it is. It's absolutely perfect because it fits in that child mentality. You
Yep.
know, I think Calvin and Hobbes is an absolute work of creative genius, and I would stand Calvin and Hobbes against any comic strip, and that includes Garfield and Peanuts. There you go.
Well, Calvin Hobbes is very greatly influenced by Charles Schultz's Peanuts. So
But still, which one are you going to go with?
I would go with Calvin Hobbes because that's my generation. Peanuts, hey, I like Snoopy, but hey,
God, stupid, just my head in. It's just too good. No, it's just Joe Cool. Just no.
oh,
Although I will say this, we were in a geek shop a couple of years ago, and they had loads of stuff, and I looked around and goes, "Oh, look, peanuts!" And I was like, "What? What?" I was like, "Peanuts," and I was like, "Oh, sorry, I mean Charlie Brown." She goes, "Oh yeah, I knew Charlie Brown is. I don't know about peanuts." I was like, "Okay."
well, I always called it Charlie Brown and didn't really know it was called Peanuts until later.
Really? I always called it
Yeah.
peanuts. Where'd I pick that up from? I don't know. I must have picked it up from somewhere.
No, yeah, I always called it Charlie Brown and Snoopy.
Because of the animated show, there was an animated show in the 70s, wasn't there?
Yeah,
There was
it
Charlie
was.
Brown and Snoopy, or the
Yeah,
Snoopy Show, or whatever it's called.
yeah, it was definitely called Snoopy. It was
Yeah,
the Snoopy Show or the Snoopy Hour or
yeah,
whatever.
crazy. Right, there you go. That's another episode done. We've talked about five great comic book moms.
Yeah.
Um, if you can think of any more that we should have covered, by all means, drop us a line. You can get us on our Twitters and so on. Let me bring those up for you. The all-time banner, there it is. You can check that out. You can find us on Twitter. And you know what? Mother's Day comes around once a year. So if we missed you this time, we'll get you next. It's fine. I'm all right with that. So give us a shout if you can come up with your own ideas. God knows what we're going to do for Father's Day. I nominate Darth Vader.
There we go. One of the one of the best fathers out there.
Yeah, yeah. We will rule the galaxy like
As
father and
father and
son.
son. Yeah.
Excellent, cool.
Wants his son to do well.
Yeah. Sorry, once in it.
Yeah.
Once for his son, yeah. Life was
Wants his
such a
son to
gift.
do well or else death.
Yeah. Bless him. Bless his cotton socks. Bless him. Professor, thank you so much for spending the time.
Oh, thank you, Johnny.
You're more than welcome. And for everyone else, don't forget to check out the UCPM for all your favorite shows, including Professor.
No Price Podcast, all about Disney Plus, the MCU, and we managed to cram in a few comic books in there.
Be Still My Heart. And also, the sister show to that is the Definitive Crusade for all you DC fans. Yes, we'll be going to watch the Flash movie. Yes, it's going to be better than Ant-Man and What's His Face. Maybe.
Maybe.
Who knows? Who knows? And my wife looks at the trailer and goes, "There's a lot going on in there." I'm like, "Yes, there is." Bless. All right, that's us done for another show. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Professor, really appreciate your time as always. I've been your host, Johnny Machine Hughes. It's that time again. Adios.